Hello, everybody. So, I wanted to come on here and talk about my experience traveling solo in Colombia long term. And the first thing I wanted to touch on was safety because, at least for me, the first thing that anybody said to me when I mentioned to them that I was traveling to Colombia solo was, "Oh my gosh, like, how is it? Like, oh, you're gonna get kidnapped, blah, blah, blah." So, what I want to say is that wherever you travel, you have to be aware of your surroundings, right? You're in a new place, you don't know where you're at. Colombia is a big country. It's not really fair or accurate to say that Colombia is unsafe because there's definitely parts of Colombia that are safe and parts of Colombia that are not. That being said, I spent most of my time in the big cities, which are the less safe areas. And I will say that for me, nothing, terrible happened to me. I'm gonna credit that to God and to favor, but yeah, I was safe the entire time. I did meet people, Americans, that got robbed. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. But I just will say that the two things that you probably want to make sure that you do is one, not pull out your phone when you're walking around by yourself. I feel like this is fairly common knowledge when you're in a large city. Um, and of course, sometimes you may need to check where you're going, check the directions, or you want to take a picture or something. But in general, it's a better idea to just keep it inside your bag as much as you can. That's what I did. Um, and you should be okay. Walk around with confidence. That's what I did. If I didn't know where I was going, I would walk around, pretend like I was from there, like nobody could tell me anything, okay? Because I wanted to make sure that I was safe. But yeah, so don't pull out your phone when you don't need to. Obviously, don't walk around at night by yourself. The places that I went to in Colombia were Cartagena, Medellin, Cali, Santa Marta, Salento, okay? And I would say that Salento was obviously the safest. It's a small town. It was fine. The other ones are bigger cities. Santa Marta, not so much, but the other ones are bigger cities. And of course, you have to be a little bit more precautious there. But as long as you're not walking around at night by yourself. I did go out at night, in Cali and other places, but if I ever was walking around at night, it was in a group and usually with at least a few people from Cali so that, they knew exactly where we were going and all that. Um, so, yes, that's what I have to say about safety. So, another thing that I want to talk about is migration. So, when I first went to Colombia, I was there for about 4 months. And so that's past the 3 month visitation mark. Um, so I originally bought a one-way ticket. And with that, when you're entering the country, you have to be careful because there's no proof of you leaving, right? So something that you can do is buy a short term, meaning it doesn't last that long, but a ticket um, that gives proof of return that you're going to be leaving, well, not necessarily returning to your country, but leaving Colombia. Um, and I think the ticket that I got said that I would be going to Panama. I bought it for about like $20 and it expired about 2 days after I bought it. So you just use it basically as proof that you're not going to be staying in these people's country past, the time that you're supposed to illegally. And I would recommend doing that. When I first traveled there, I didn't even need to use it. They didn't ask for it in the States. They didn't ask for it when I was going through migration in Colombia. The guy basically like looked at my thing, stamped it, and let me go. But of course, you're not always going to meet, the migration officer that's in the best mood. So I would suggest to just buy that. It's around $20, super cheap, and gives you that security that you can get into the country, spend your time there on your one-way ticket without worrying about that. Um, when you pass your 3 months in Colombia, you need to, of course, either actually leave and then you can come back. I don't know for how much time you need to leave. I never have done that. But what I did is I just asked for an extension. So that process is surprisingly really easy. You can do everything online. You go to the Colombian migration website. You ask if you can stay past the 3 months, and I think you have to send a picture of your passport. I believe you do have to pay a fee, but again, it's a really small fee. It's probably $20 again, something like that. And pretty much always, from what I've heard, they'll grant your request to stay an extra 3 months. By the way, I'm going to look up the exact website that I used for the proof of a ticket out of Colombia, and also the website for the Colombian migration, to where you can extend your stay in the description box so that you guys know how to do that. All right, so something else that I want to talk about is transportation. First, I'm going to touch on transportation between cities. So, when I was in Colombia, like I mentioned before, I was in a few different cities. And so the first time I actually took a flight from Cartagena to Medellin, and that was before I really knew anything. I will say that that is a very convenient method. I enjoy it. It cost me, I think, maybe like 25 US dollars for that plane ticket from Cartagena to Medellin. So super affordable. Um, Definitely recommend it. However, I was there for a long time, so despite it being, pretty affordable, it was a little bit more than I was willing to spend when you take into account bags, because I made the mistake of bringing these two giant bags when I was there. And so that was an extra like $20 or so each for me to be able to travel. So it would have ended up costing me like $70 for the flight, um, which I know it may not sound that bad, but in the situation I was in, I was trying to save as much money as possible. That being said, they also have buses that go from city to city. And so that's how I did the majority of my traveling between cities when I was in Colombia. Um, I definitely recommend it as long as you're taking a night bus, because personally, I just would 1000% rather take a night bus than a day bus. The reason for that being that when you take it at night, it's a lot more direct. You're typically going from one city to the next without really any stops. For me, I took it from Medellin to Cali, and I basically like fell asleep and woke up in Cali. Like, it was pretty nice. Um, Whereas when you take the day bus, typically there's going to be a lot more stops, stopping to pick up people along the way, a lot more traffic, and it's going to most likely take longer than how long they say it's going to take. Um, One thing to note about these in between city buses is that for some reason they make them really cold. So, like, the first time that I went on it, the one from Medellin to Cali, I was dying because I had no idea, and they had the AC on full blast. And praise the Lord, the driver of the bus was so sweet. Like, I wish I could just, like, he could see me thanking him this day, but he gave me his jacket because I was just sitting there like not able to sleep. So I would just recommend, if you are going to take those buses, come prepared. Put on every piece of clothing that you own so that you're not freezing on the bus like how I was. But other than that, the buses are quite comfortable. You can put your seat all the way back. They're pretty nice, um, big seats. And like I said, aside from my coldness, I was able to sleep almost the whole way from Medellin to Cali. And that bus ride took about 10 hours. So, like I said, the plane from city to city was around $20-$30. That's without any bags, aside from, like a handheld purse. Um, Whereas the bus was around $13, and that included them taking all my bags. So with bags included for the plane, it would have cost maybe like 70, 60 to $80. The bus cost like $15. So that's why I preferred the bus. And then also I was, like I said, I was able to just sleep on it. When it came to transportation within the city, I took the metro as well as Ubers during my time there. Uber is super available, super easy when you're over there. Taxis as well, if you prefer that. The metro was nice as well. It's a way to save even more money if you want to do that. I will say that it's fairly convenient, the metro. It's just that depending on where you're going, you may need to take, the metro to a certain point and then another bus to a certain point or something like that. So a lot of times I preferred to take Ubers because, like I said, the Ubers were super cheap as well. I think that I paid about $2 for like a 15 to 20 minute ride in the city. So super convenient, super cheap. And that leads me to another point about the conversion rate and the money in Colombia. When I was there in 2021, the conversion rate was 4,000 pesos to $1. I believe it's about the same right now. I'm not 100% sure. Um, I actually went back a few months ago at the end of 2022, and then the conversion rate was even bigger. I think it was 5,000 pesos to a dollar. But yeah, so that being said, as a US citizen, you're pretty much good to go there. Like the US dollar goes pretty far. So you don't have to worry too much about how much you're spending unless you're going to be there for a really long time, like I did, and try to take all the buses and metros and everything that you can. So I want to touch on the weather in Colombia. Um, I was a little bit naive when I was packing the first time because, I was like, ooh, Colombia, it's spicy. It's close to the Caribbean. I'm going to bring my little tank tops or whatever. But like, it's a big country. There's different areas with different climates. And for example, when I was first in Cartagena, what I packed was great because Cartagena was super hot, especially at the time of year that I went. Literally, you would take a shower and be sweating in the 5 seconds that it took you to get out of the shower. However, there's other parts that are, much colder. Bogota is a super cold city for that area. I never went there, but that's what I heard. Salento, I was cold in Salento. I was mad. I was like, why didn't I bring a sweatshirt? Medellin, they say, is like the eternal spring, so super nice weather there. It does rain fairly often, but it's nice there. I would like to have a little light sweater in Medellin, but other than that, like, you're good with t-shirts and jeans. But yeah, just look up the exact place that you're going to be in before you go and make sure you're packing appropriately. Not like I did, because I had to buy a sweater when I was out there because I ended up getting colds. So obviously in Colombia, they speak Spanish, right? But I did want to mention that I think it's a good idea to brush up on your Spanish a little bit before you leave. And I'm a big believer of, trying to speak the language of the country that you're in while you're there anyway. But I do think that there's a less amount of people that speak English in Colombia as opposed to other places that I've been. And that may have just been the experience that I had there. But I've also been to other Latin American countries, and I would say that, for example, Mexico, Costa Rica, I would say that they spoke more English there than in Colombia. So, of course, we're in 2023 now. You can get by with your Google Translate, whatever, but it's always a good idea to brush up on your Spanish a little bit before you go. So I wanted to touch on the fun side of things. Firstly, the nightlife. I love to dance, and that's honestly like one of the biggest things that I like about Colombia. So again, depending on where you are, it's going to be different. For example, I'll touch on the places that I spent most of my time in. In Cartagena, if you go out, it's a mix of music. You're gonna find crossover, which they call it. Like, I guess you would say that's like just American music, crossover, right? Music. So like your hip hop, things like that, pop music. They do play salsa as well, reggaeton, champeta. And then in Medellin, I would say is mostly reggaeton and vallenato, which I didn't know about until I went over there. Vallenato is super, you know, it's like, how do I describe it? It's like more like music that you'd want to do karaoke to rather than dance to. Or like if you're going to dance with it, it's going to be with your lover. So yes, that was the most popular thing in Medellin and reggaeton. A little bit of salsa in Medellin as well, but not a lot. Cali, however, of course, is like the Latin American capital of salsa, I think. So salsa, 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 pura salsa allá. Y me encantó. I loved it. Um, if you have experience dancing salsa, like in the States, like how I did, I do want to tell you that it's different over there. So in Colombia, they're going to be dancing the style salsa caleña. Whereas here, whether you're in LA, New York, typically you're going to be dancing salsa en línea. So it's different. So just be prepared for that when you go over there. I was super, confused when I first went, and I was like, I want somebody to turn me. Like, I don't know what's going on. But it grew on me, and I grew to love it, and you'll see if you go there, if you're into the salsa scene. So other fun things, again, like I said, Colombia is a huge country. Depending on where you go, you can get that nightlife experience, that city experience, or you can get the beach experience like in Santa Marta, or even just nature hiking experience in different places, a little bit off the grid of the main cities, or like in Salento where I went, it's super popular for having the tallest palm trees in the world. So definitely do your research of what you prefer, right, for your trip. If you want more of the city nightlife experience, I would recommend Medellin or Cali. If you want a beachy experience, Cartagena, Santa Marta, and so on. Yes. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is food, okay? And before I say anything about this, disclaimer, this is my opinion. You don't have to agree with it. I'm just going to tell you what my experience was and what I thought about it. So, in general, I was not the biggest fan of Colombian food, okay? And the reason for that was I found that a lot of the local food just kind of lacked flavor. So, in my humble opinion, I would say if you're a foodie, you really like to travel for food, that's the number one thing you like to travel for, Colombia wouldn't be my top choice. Me, I like to travel to meet people, to dance, to go out and do fun things. And for that reason, I love Colombia. Um, and don't get me wrong, I was able to find good food, but that's what it was. I had to go out and find it. You're not going to just, stop by the local, you know, locally owned place and be amazed by the food. I don't think. If you've been to Colombia, you're from Colombia, you have a different experience, that's fine. For me, wasn't the best. I did, I appreciated the cazuela, I think it's called. The cazuela was good. Bandeja paisa. There's different foods that are good, but it's not, I wouldn't go back there for the food. I wouldn't say, wow, the food in this country is so good. That's just my honest opinion. All right, so that's it. That's all I have to say about my experience traveling solo in Colombia. If you have any questions, feel free to comment. And yes, I will try to answer your questions. So thanks for listening. Bye bye.